I really wanted to hate Terminator Dark Fate. Like I can't stress that enough. Everything that I heard about this movie made me hate it more. From all the spoilers, and I did see some of those spoilers and some of those leaks, I was not looking forward to this movie at all. I thought that James Cameron had lost it. I thought that Tim Miller was the worst possible person to put in the director's chair. I thought, man, this franchise has been beaten to a bloody pulp at this point, and they need to leave it alone. And to be completely honest, I still feel that way. But after seeing the film, I do feel like my initial reactions to it were a bit unfair. So this review is definitely going to have some spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie or you plan on seeing it this weekend, hold off on watching this review unless you just want to be spoiled. Then by all means, keep watching. This movie was a good action film and a really bad Terminator film. And why do I say that? Because Terminator Dark Fate basically throws away all of the Terminator mythos, everything that made the franchise great. It throws all of that away and replaces it with a new coat of paint that's just not nearly as good as what came before. And it really is a good action film. I mean, with all the issues that I had with it, I was sitting there, I was having a great time. I mean, as far as like what this new Terminator played by Gabriel Luna, this Rev 9, I mean, it was a very interesting, unstoppable killing machine that has some really great moments. But I mean, even with the exhilarating action scenes and the big set pieces and all the explosions, it just couldn't hide the simple fact that this movie just wasn't as good as it could have been, and that this is basically a retread of literally everything that we have seen before story-wise. And it makes me very scared if this movie does do well, what it could mean for the future of the franchise. Now, all of you may know, if you're familiar with any of the leaks, that Terminator Dark Fate pretty much starts out with the death of John Connor, which really leads into what the rest of the movie is going to be like. They're basically saying what you know about Terminator is gone. Everything that you were used to, we're getting rid of that and we're replacing it with something kind of sort of new. Instead of John Connor being the savior of mankind and Sarah Connor giving birth to the savior of mankind, Sarah Connor and John Connor are no longer relevant because they stopped Judgment Day back in Terminator 2. But since Judgment Day is inevitable, all they did was prolonged it. And now instead of Skynet becoming aware, there's this new AI called Legion who becomes aware way down in the future. And now the new leader of the Resistance is Donnie Ramos, who is played by Natalia Reyes. And I'm assuming in the future, because they don't really explain this, Danny sends back Grace, who's played by Mackenzie Davis, to protect her from any machines or anything that is sent back in time to try and kill Danny. Sounds like your regular Terminator fare. I mean, nothing really new here. The only key difference is that Gabriel Luna is kind of a mix, kind of a jumbled up version of all the previous Terminator machines that we've gotten in the last few movies, which does make him really cool. But at the same time, it's like, we've seen all of this before, and while I was sitting here watching the movie, I was really waiting for something new to happen that wasn't offensive, because the death of John Connor really is offensive. It completely craps on T1 and T2 and everything that Sarah Connor did to try to keep her son alive. It craps on all of that. Now those movies feel like they were pointless. I mean, if you're a real fan, those movies are still great, and this movie feels pointless. But it makes those movies feel pointless when you're watching it, because what was the point of all of that if none of it was going to matter in the end? And that's basically what Terminator Dark Fate is telling us, that none of it ultimately was going to matter. I'm not going to complain the entire time. Dark Fate really did have some cool stuff going on. I've already mentioned the Rev 9. Linda Hamilton, who comes along later in the film. She's now a Terminator hunter, just kind of hunting down Terminators, destroying them. I'm assuming it's just so that she can so she can give herself purpose, especially after her son died. This is all Linda knows at this point. And Linda Hamilton really does a great job here with what she's given. She's still the really strong Sarah Connor that we all know and love. And she has some really witty, playful banter with Mackenzie Davis and Natalia Reyes. I mean, it's humorous. And she also has some really weighty, emotional moments, especially when she talks about her son and everything that happened 20 or so years ago. When she runs into Arnold Schwarzenegger much later on in the film, she has some weighty moments there. So she really is the star of this movie, and she's really the only real reason to go and see it if you want to, kind of see the Sarah Connor character get further characterization and get further in depth, or just kind of see where she is now. This is the real reason to go see this film. Arnold Schwarzenegger is really good too. I wasn't a big fan of his role in this film. Again, he's the playful Terminator. Now he's lived amongst humans after killing John Connor, and now he's like grown a conscience, and he has his own family now and everything. It's like, come on, really? I mean, I get it. I get why they did it, but it just, to me, it doesn't feel real. It just feels like it was there. It was just put there for a comedic effect, or they just literally created this just so that Arnold could be in the movie and be with Linda Hamilton on screen again for nostalgia. But even though Arnold's role feels forced, I did enjoy seeing him in the movie. I did enjoy seeing what he was doing with the role. So I mean, I guess you have that. But honestly, I just really couldn't get over the fact that the movie feels like a complete retread of everything that we've seen. I mean, there are literally moments in the film that looks like they were pulled from Terminator Genisys. I mean, even the future scenes look like something pulled straight out of Terminator Salvation. And the Rev 9, he dies in a way that's extremely similar to the Terminator from T3, and his powers are really similar too. On top of being similar to Robert Patrick's Terminator in T2 with the liquid metal. It's just there's so many things that's just pulled from other films. Even Grace, as great as Mackenzie Davis is in this movie, and she really is great, she's basically Kyle Reese in female form. Sent back, she has this relationship with Danny in the future. She's sent back in time to protect Danny, and she sacrifices herself in the end for Danny exactly the same way that Kyle Reese did in Terminator 1. It's just like, what exactly are you bringing to the table here that's new and exciting and getting people who may not be familiar with the franchise excited for what comes next? We're excited to check this out, What became clear to me is that this movie, as far as the story goes, this isn't for the fans. This is for people who are uninitiated with the Terminator, who really weren't big fans of this series in the first place, okay, who don't care about the story and the characters that much. They just like being reminded of something that they saw when they were a kid. That's who this movie is for. And it's a shame because the people keeping this franchise alive were those diehard fans. People who weren't interested in Terminator surely weren't going to see this movie in the past few years. I know that for a fact. All right, and they've been getting dwindling box office numbers. You would think that they would do everything in their possible to get the fans to give this film good word of mouth, so that people who aren't interested, who don't know anything about the franchise, will go out in droves to actually go and see it. It's like they didn't care at all. It's like a gigantic middle finger to the fans, and I really, really hate that they did that, because this was a grand opportunity for them to do something really cool and really creative with this franchise. If you wanted to pass the baton on, you could have done so in a more creative way. People were comparing this movie to The Force Awakens, but it's literally The Force Awakens in all the bad ways. And then it's like if it was The Force Awakens, but it was only the death of Han Solo, and that's it. And they took out the Luke Skywalker bit at the end of that film, and that was all you got. Okay? That would have been a very dissatisfying, probably frustrating film. And this is exactly what that would have been like. At least The Force Awakens introduced us to some new characters. I mean, even though we may not like them as much as the original trio, I mean, we kind of got a grasp of what these characters were like, what their motivations were, and we spent enough time with them to really kind of care about what was going on. We don't do that nearly enough in this film. Other than Grace, you don't really care at all about Danny Ramos. I mean, Linda Hamilton and Arnold already have their built-in fan bases. And Gabriel Luna, even though he's a really cool Terminator, I mean, what else is there? Nothing. There's nothing else there. What they could have done, and if they were trying to pull from The Force Awakens, insert old character to get older fans interested to come back into the movie theater, was actually bring John Connor back. And if he wanted to erase his future, he was no longer the leader of the Resistance, they could have had him as like a mentor type character or something. He shows up at the end of the movie, or he's helping out Danny Ramos or something, kind of getting her to the point that he was already ready for. That would have been a great way to keep John Connor in the franchise and keep fans invested. Now, I don't know if that's possible. I really feel like Terminator Dark Fate was a missed opportunity, and it's really frustrating to see it because there was so much potential here that I feel like was wasted. It's literally a retread of everything else that came before it, and honestly, we've seen all of this, and it was done much better. Let's just be honest, all right? With the lone exception of Genesis. I don't know. I'm disappointed. I was surprised by how good the action scenes were and how interested in the film I was, but I still walked away from the movie feeling empty and feeling like this was just not a movie that needed to be made. They really should have left this franchise alone at T2. No, I'm not one of those people who hates T3. I thought that T3 ended in a really wonderful way, kind of forcing John Connor to accept his destiny. Once again being saved by a Terminator, and then we saw all the nukes go and blow up the world and everything, was led directly into Terminator Salvation, which is another film that really wasn't as bad as everybody said it was, but they really should have left it alone at that point because the story is not moving forward anymore. We're right back at the beginning again, and it's like, when are we ever going to move forward? And what makes this movie even more offensive is the fact that they are literally rebooting the franchise, telling the same story, and if this movie does well, it might just get to the point where that fans wanted the franchise to move to all along, which is the future war. Except we're not going to be there with Sarah and John Connor. We're going to be there with Danny Ramos. That should tell you all you need to know. Terminator Dark Fate is not a bad movie. I'm going to say it's watchable, but it's not necessary. For those of you who saw it, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Did you enjoy this film? Do you agree with my statements, or do you feel like I'm just some crybaby fanboy? And for those of you who haven't seen it, do you plan on seeing it? Do you plan on giving it a chance? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you have not done so already, go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you can get more content like this, which contains movie news, reviews, and reactions from your boy Derek right here at Anamanji. Don't forget to click that like button, and do not forget to click that bell notification so that you will know when I post again. That's all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay dope.